Attaboy, you got this. But only if you promise. That stress you never wanted, that pride you surely flaunted, but really you're just haunted. That viewfinder it taunts you, always staring through the static. Forms such an awful habit, since you couldn't hack it. Not installed with any tracking, and rather held back by faulty film. So tragic. So all you can do is look back and smile with tears in your eyes, till you forget what you are in lieu of who you were. Looking through your childhood eyes, remembering what lit them up so bright, just so you can be blind to your mistakes, to your aches, for losing all that once held the stakes. I refuse to believe that you're fake. In these words, I never got to say, but listen to me, Jake. No one can escape their fate. We both know that from what you're doing with this tape. And though it makes my knees buckle and quake, the best I can do for you is walk away.
Steady, use both hands at all times. That's some expensive technology you're holding. Attaboy!
And now you'll tell me to take care of myself?
Brian David Gilbert, formerly of Polygon, is a fascinating artist. Unraveled, his show that recently had its big finale, really dug into games analysis in a way that always inspired me. His absurdist brand of humor is very much up my alley, and it took me until recently to realize the similarities between his style of comedy and, say, something like Tim and Eric's Awesome Show, or This House Has People in It, which for some is an acquired taste, and for others is a blemish on the whole of society. It's kind of the language of meme humor on the internet to a degree. Swerving into knee-jerk, unexpected territory is the hallmark of any good joke, and sometimes the most effective horror.
Claire drill targets where you're most vulnerable, acts immediately, and lasts indefinitely.
But BDG has been slowly working on horror stuff without me even noticing, as Teaching Jake has a link on the video linking to another horror short film from back in October 2020, called Earn 20K Every Month by Being Your Own Boss, which I originally wrote off as a Mimi comedy video, but swerves into horror harder than Mommy Tome in a Doulahan cosplay.
Ever since I signed up with Dorian Smiles' program, he just sent over the spreadsheets and I got to work right away. But what am I working on? Like seriously, what the fuck am I doing?
And you know what else? That wasn't the first horror vid he did either. And you know what? That isn't the first horror film he did either. I'm scared to check out anything else right now in Brian's catalog of horror stuff, but How to Make Jorts is also a very surprisingly horror-adorable video that's even older on his channel.
Instead of throwing your jeans into the laundry, why not hand wash them one last time?
And I cautiously recommend it. Today I watched Teaching Jake about the Camcorder January '97. Which, if you haven't seen it all, I encourage you to watch right now because it's short and mystifying, and I think it's best enjoyed before I seek to gush and wrap my mouth around explaining this thing with some amount of nuance. But I'll be right here when you get back from watching it yourself if you've chosen to do so. And the trigger warning for that video should be on screen right now, if that's okay. And by sheer coincidence, this video also has the trigger warnings. And by sheer coincidence, this video also has the same trigger warnings. Yay! Information! Please protect yourself, everybody. I do not know why this video came ahead of anything else I was working on, if only to say it's spur of the moment, and I miss finishing scripts all in one go. Not to mention the ongoing existential crisis I and my system undertake each day in this broken husk we call a body, that is somehow abated by that which calls us. Not to mention the ongoing existential crisis. Oh! I see you've returned. Well, let's dig into this Horradorable experience. What this film depicts is someone watching the tape recorded by a father and son. There's just a few minutes of a boy recording his dad as he's instructed on camera operation.
Use both hands at all times. That's some expensive technology you're holding. Attaboy! Look at you, Mr. Director. Mr. Big Shot Director over here, the next Steven Spielberg, goodness!
It's a very proud moment for the father and presumably his unnamed partner he calls to off-screen, who never physically appears but who we can reasonably assume is Jake's mother.
Hun, come take a look. Jake's holding it like a professional.
It should be a typical home movie that is an anecdote worthy at best. The dad seems to be very much encouraging Jake to become a filmmaker, which by the setting in which Jake is watching this tape may imply he never achieved. If he's achieved much of anything at all. During the course of the tape, past Jake is told to never rewind the tape, or else he may
record over a precious memory.
Which hints at the abnormal circumstances watching the tape creates.
Alright, so we always want to keep the recording going forward.
When rewinded without stopping, the tape changes events as they happened. It allows communication between the father and whomever watches the tape. Blah blah blah.
It's the rewind button. Jake? No, not... Jake? It's good to see you, buddy.
The film teaching Jake, then, is several iterations on rewinding the tape and seeing what changes unfold and interactions occur between Jake and the father.
Jake, why do you keep watching this tape?
Throughout the rewinds, the father's facial hair changes, hinting at the tape's influence in an unclear way. But I can pretty much ascertain that, what do I know? Throughout the rewinds, the father's facial hair changes, hinting at the tape's influence in an unclear way. Some people in the comments thought that maybe it is like different iterations of the dad, but I don't think so. I think that the tape is slowly changing things with each rewind, like different realities or Mandela effects. And that's why the hair is different. It's to show that it happened in a reality that is slightly different. Something changed to make him not cut his hair or cut his hair in certain ways. More importantly, a black figure appears in several rewinds.
Hun, come take a look. Who are you? How did you get in my house?
Increasingly in prominence until noticed by the father, although the black figure is ultimately not the father's end, at least not seemingly so. The figure never even touches either past Jake or the father. However, the father's awareness of who is watching the tape, presumably present Jake, also intensifies the more rewinds occur.
Jake, I know you were just there. Jake. I don't know what it is that you're trying to gain from replaying this video, but I can promise you you're not gonna find it.
Though perhaps the very viewer themselves is what the father is seeing as denoted when he says in one rewind,
"You're not."
At first, the father appreciates seeing Jake, but slowly realizes that connecting with his son this way isn't happening because Jake is okay.
I'm so thankful for the time we had together, but you can't keep reliving it. That's not gonna bring me back. It's not gonna make you happy. So I'm asking you to stop watching.
The father either knows or suspects he isn't alive in present day and pleads with the viewer to stop watching the tape because it won't hold the answers to nothing holds the answers.
One tape isn't gonna hold the answer to whatever. I love you, Jake.
Kept ambiguous, this kinda works in a surreal way since it disavows any meaning at all. In the end, the father resolves to do the only thing he can do to disrupt the narrative the tape creates, and perhaps spare his son from the torture he's putting himself through.
Attaboy.
He simply leaves the room, and presumably the apartment altogether, essentially making the memory unviewable. In a way, ruining it, withholding himself from the viewer. Not unlike the main character in The Butterfly Effect, who ruins his future girlfriend's birthday the day they met so that they would never become friends. So she would never be part of events, and no matter what happened, she wouldn't be hurt. Not exactly not existing, but not existing around you at least. which is a weird parallel because there's a deleted ending, alternate ending, where instead of making it so he doesn't meet or never becomes friends with his future girlfriend, he just kills himself in the womb, so he'll never touch anyone at all. The iteration before the last shows the father in great pain, either from something off screen or something the tape itself is doing to him. Screaming, this pain he experiences could be from the degradation of the tape itself, because as he screams, there's audio distortion. Maybe the memory has been overwritten so many times it's starting to become unstable. When the father finally leaves the frame in the last rewind, a shadow matching his appears on the wall behind the TV, seeming to suggest he left the tape altogether. On his face, Teaching Jake is a subtly effective horror short film, doing what many of the big boys and girls in MBs and horror do, or at least the horror we find effective. Draw your attention with small disturbing details that folks don't diegetically notice, but are great for shadowing. Have a observable framework that only enriches itself on repeat viewings, tugs at the heartstrings with simple, relatable conflicts and stakes. Tugs at the heartstrings with simple, relatable conflicts and stakes, and of course, uses your expectations against you. Use it against you. When the stakes for characters isn't death like in many psychological horror films, it's quite something, like the Butterfly Effect, or Happy Death Day. Which I didn't pick randomly as examples because this film too uses repetition as a diegetic mechanic and avenue of the horror.
You have unlimited amount of lives, unlimited opportunities to solve your own murder.
If you check the comments on the video, you can see many people are struck by this film, especially if their name was Jake. But, uncomfortably, even if that wasn't at all the case. And I have to say, I too feel it. I have a lot of history that feeds into these feelings, but we have no childhood experiences with her body sperm donor. We're black, queer, and a baby fur. We never really had a tape camcorder, but regardless of all that...
Look at you, Mr. Director! Mr. Big Shot Director over here, the next Steven Spielberg, goodness! Never press the rewind button, or else you might record over a precious memory. You're an adult? Wow. Wow. I don't know what it is that you're trying to gain from replaying this video, but I can promise you you're not gonna find it.
Not only did I feel directly addressed by the father, but the whole framing device and narrative deeply pierces me and my very being. My very being. This film called me from a cacophony of angles I've never been able to resist, and separately recording things so I don't ever record over a precious memory. But also because the dream I held the longest, this film called me from a cacophony of angles I've never been able to resist, and separately recording things so I don't ever. But also because the dream I held the longest and influenced nearly all of my decisions for almost my entire life was being a filmmaker. There were of course always other things I wanted to do, but ultimately where I lived, went to school, even sometimes the friends I made were all at least nudged by the consideration of, will this help or hurt my eventual filmmaking career? Hell, for a long time, I saw being a YouTuber as an admittance that I failed, instead of a gateway to the goal. Why did I think that? I don't know how I feel about that anymore. I don't know how I feel anymore. I don't know how I feel anymore. If anything, constantly feeling like a failure? If anything, constantly feeling like a failure as our unfortunate life circumstances and untreated mental illnesses seem to derail that goal more and more. It seemed doing YouTube, let alone being successful, was obviously aiming too high. So I can definitely relate with wanting to look back at earlier times and trying to hang on to the few good memories or good records of my past as I can find. Because as we get older, there's just fewer and fewer things we get to hold on to. We studied film in college and we got to analyze a lot of films, especially existential horror films. Experimental horror films. We studied films in college and we got to analyze a lot of films, especially experimental films like this. So it also makes me nostalgic as someone who's very comfortable with this esoteric horror film about regret, mourning, and the fear of the future. In fact, it had made watching it actually made me front to even write this essay. I was floating in an ether as if sleep, then suddenly, you're not Jake. You're not. This is an essay, there's nothing else. And as if captivated, I couldn't help but write this essay. Sometimes being moved by art when you're like me is difficult because, of course, I had to do something on it. I'm a camera hog, just like I'm sure Jake was, considering he and his dad obviously expected great things from him. And it's obvious he's not there anymore to say sorry or that he's proud of what his son became. So I'm pretty sure Jake's dad was a filmmaker or an aspiring one. The camcorder can easily be seen as, oh, he just wanted it to record memories of his new family. But the odd detail of the father's beanie makes me recognize him as a kindred spirit, as he wears a beanie like a film student. I know because we used to wear a hat like that all the time for the express purpose of looking more filmy. Or at least more artsy. Art school dropouts the world over probably wore a beanie like that in that way that functions less as a hat and more as a peacock feather for decades, I'm sure. If so, the passing down of his dream to Jake seems reasonable. After all, he really seems to like the idea of Jake being a filmmaker. I think in some way, Jake isn't neurotypical? Maybe because past Jake says absolutely nothing throughout the rewinds, though his father does address him in a way that is not repeated in every iteration of events.
Jake? No, not...
So we know he's not exactly blank in thought, unlike, say, the Butterfly Effect, where the main character possesses his past self in rewinds. It's really hecking weird for this kid to not say anything throughout all of this time, and all these weird occurrences. I know given that this film was made by both BDG and Karen Han, we can assume that the actual reason past Jake is unvoiced is because they didn't have access to a kid to be a boy... a voice. They didn't have access to a kid to be a voice in the first place. This is a minimalistic short film after all. But everything is a choice. Everything is a choice. Even the things aren't a choice. The things aren't a choice. Which things aren't a choice? Which things are just the way I am? But everything is a choice. Even the lack of resources. And a no-voice kid, Jake, reads to me as perhaps autistic? But at the very least nonverbal. Another explanation of past Jake's silence could be that he's too young to talk. After all, the tape has an air of baby's first steps. However, even babies make sounds, especially when being praised, or confused, or frightened. But for Aspies, sometimes things like speech, potty training, and hand-eye coordination come much later than our neurotypical counterparts. And of course, cameras are very attractive to those that are very curious, which many an Aspie, kid or adult, has in spades. And it makes sense if a kid is having trouble with more rough and tumble activities, that a parent would lean towards trying to get them into things that are less physically intensive. I mean, I just feel it's weird for this father who already said the camera was expensive and is hinted at being a filmmaker himself to put it in the hands of a kid too young to comprehend not sticking it in their mouths. I think the kid is nonverbal, and that the pride the father has is in the accomplishment of holding the camera itself.
You're so good, bud! Oh, no, both hands, Jake. Jake, both hands, Jake!
Being a shy and timid kid is often a label overstimulated Aspie kids get thrusted on quite often. This reading could also somewhat explain why who we presume to be future Jake lives in such a state. The door behind the TV looks like the door to the closet behind the father in the video. If this is adult Jake watching, he's either clearing out the stuff for his family after maybe both his parents died, or he still lives there, presumably with his mom. Pretty normal for a millennial nowadays, but easily common in autistic folks since we have a very hard time getting and maintaining work. Now I don't think this was all in BDG's mind at all when making this, but hey, I don't think that matters very much, especially for an experimental short film. Interpretation is all up to you and all that fluff. But if BDG is watching, then did you ever expect something like this coming from your work? It's kind of wild, isn't it? You don't know me. No one knows me. Does anyone know me? I think these themes of regret and wanderlust found in the film call upon the human experience quite a bit. I mean, people often wonder what they'd do in a time machine, or what they'd do if they knew the last precious moment they had with a loved one was that last precious moment. And I think the film answers that beautifully.
You can't keep reliving it. That's not gonna bring me back. It's not gonna make you happy. I don't want you to get stuck. Oh boy.
If it did exist, you would ruin it. The funny thing about memory is that the less you revisit it in your mind, the more you rewrite it. The funny thing about memory is that the more you visit it in your mind, the more you rewrite it. The more it's malleable to change, especially by the emotions you associate with it. But the memories you can only barely revisit or don't remember except on rare occasions are the ones that, when accessed, are both much more vivid and hopefully are more in line with what actually happened. Though everyone's an unreliable narrator. Teaching Jake is the aspiration of present time. Teaching Jake is the aspiration of a memory being eroded over all the time it's revisited. He saved over a precious memory over and over again, until the memory was ruined. If anything, that means Jake is the antagonist, and the father is the antagonist? The deuteragonist at the very least. Whoa, blah, blah. Weird. Dwelling on the past hurt you in the present. Teaching Jake is the aspiration of memory being eroded over all the times it's revisited, except in a more literal sense. Dwelling on the past hurts you in the present, and obsessing about it only hurts the ones you want to keep these precious memories of. That's what the father keeps trying to impart on Jake. And the funny thing is, it's literally hurting the father too. Whatever the tape is doing is causing him pain, whether that is as a ghost, stuck in a time loop a million times worse than Groundhog Day, or just existentially in the moment of knowing Jake is suffering and he can't do shit to stop it. The film is crammed with details that even my obsessed ass miss, but I think the funny thing is, I could have explained this really easily without much context, because as it fits into BDG's body of work,
I got a creative writing degree. That's all I have to say about that. Second takeaway, this is a wonderful teaching device about unreliable narrators. So many of these histories are negating other ones. This is a wonderful way of showing people you need to read everything if you're going to get the whole picture. I read everything. I am the keeper of the picture.
It seems almost obvious to me. Even if no matter how many fucking times artists tell people this, it'll always need to be said.
Attaboy! Look at you, Mr. Director. Mr. Big Shot Director over here.
I was praised by my father.
Will you live the rest of your life regurgitating and redigesting those few pleasant memories?
If I trust their words, it's enough. Enough to keep me alive.
But I'm still crying. Why am I crying?
My time in this perfect dimension would soon be coming to an end. Jake, why do you keep watching this tape?
I have no value without it.
But what if I never leave?
This is self-deception.
I don't care what you want to call it.
You have been shutting your eyes and covering your ears, making yourself blind and deaf to that which you wish to avoid.
You can't keep reliving it. That's not gonna bring me back. It's not gonna make you happy. So I'm asking you to stop watching.
Everybody does it. That's how everyone survives.
If you will not accept that you are capable of initiating change within yourself, you will be unable to continue.
This world is filled with too much pain and suffering to keep going on.
One tape isn't gonna hold the answer to whatever.
From now on, you're on your own. You'll have to make your own decisions. No one can do it for you.
I can't. I'm no good.
From Evangelion to from Evangelion to it's still the same. Don't get lost in escapism. Be present. Live life. Cherish the memories. But don't let them stop you from making new ones. And the pleading to stop the tape could even be meta. As a viewer of this type of content, unfiction, and the like, it's easy to fall into a rabbit hole of analyzing and rewatching ad nauseum. In fact, I had the video going on repeat in the background for hours while I wrote this, and I had to eventually come to peace with it. I won't hit every point or say everything that could have been said about this work. The bane of analysts everywhere, including BDG, I presume, because...
Alright, assholes. I have no more space here, so I made you a data cube. Are you happy?
The motif of "you won't find answers here" is also common throughout his other work.
Alright, you say you want to know the truth about the most settable Pokemon because it's gonna make you happy, but I know the truth and it hasn't made me happy! Shit. The original Pokérap taught us the wrong lesson. It is not that we should catch them all, it is that we should love the ones we catch.
I've noticed it in the rewatching of Unravels I've done in the morning of their completion. Funny too then how I have fear of our future as a creator at times because BDG is not the only content creator with a rich body of analysis work that we saw for inspiration. Funny then too how I have fear of our future as a creator at times because BDG is not the only content creator with a rich body of analysis work that we saw inspiration from, that eventually felt the need to move on to original work as opposed to only making things that are reliant on another piece of art, like Bennett the Sage or Digine.
I don't want to be making videos anymore. I mean, logically, I know I want to keep going, but that feeling was just so hard to deny. Basically, I don't want to stop making Anime Abandoned, but I can't deny that there's this feeling inside me that wants me to. I remembered how happy and proud I was when Anime Impact came out, because that was the first thing I ever written that was published. And then it hit me. I want to write stories. I've always wanted to write stories for the longest time, but you know, the job always came first and I couldn't make time to commit to writing a novel.
You have to grow, even if the future is scary. If you fight too hard to stay the same, you'll just be worse off for it. If you fight to stay the same, you and your loved ones will be worse off for it. The black figure is the most in-your-face horror element in this entire film, and I think it's... The black figure is the most in-your-face horror element in this entire film, and I think its importance to the experience is heavy, but looking back, as terrifying as it is, it's all too familiar to me. A lot of things will work here to explain what it is. Time, death, or even the degradation of the tape itself. The last read came to me in the first appearance of the figure as it looks crinkly, like how tape and VHS films look when they're old or damaged. Playing a tape with wrinkled film is an experience, and it usually means that there is a lot of quality loss. And more often than not, over time, it jams, or just stops having viewable footage altogether. Oh yes, the degradation of the tape thing, I think is a pretty solid read, considering...
The rewind button, or else you might record over a precious memory.
It's pretty clear here, but by the time we get here, it's so distorted.
You're zooming in, bud.
That is a really interesting detail. Pretty fucking awesome to be sure. I love that so much other than this pointed to this read, and then this was just icing on the cake for me. It is so poignant that the figure does nothing but exist, and that the father, when confronting it, just yells,
Who are you? Who are you? Talk, goddammit! Who are you? Who are you? Say something! Who are you?
Who are you? Over and over. It's the future. It's death. It's the unknown. Because it doesn't matter how the father died. It happened. And nothing can undo that. No matter how many times you look back at the tape. As it was always going to. And of course it will happen to every bite you will ever or will ever love. As it was always going to. And as it will of course happen to every bite you have ever or will ever love. And I mean, if you were stuck in that tape, and you just wanted Jake to be okay, what else could you do but leave? And hope that he won't find something else to fixate on. Or try to follow you into the dark. Thanks everybody. Take care of yourselves. Attaboy, you got this. But only if you promise. That stress you never wanted, that pride you surely flaunted. But really, you're just haunted. That viewfinder, it taunts you. Always staring through the static. Formed such an awful habit, since you couldn't hack it. Not installed with any tracking, and rather held back by faulty film. So tragic. So all you can do is look back, and smile with tears in your eyes. Till you forget what you are in lieu of who you were. Looking through your childhood eyes, remembering what lit them up so bright. Just so you can be blind. To your mistakes, to your aches. For losing all that once held the stakes. I refuse to believe that you're fake. And these words I never got to say. But listen to me, Jake. No one can escape their fate. We both know that from what you're doing with this tape. And though it makes my knees buckle and quake, the best I can do for you is walk away. Thank you for watching. This was weird. We don't usually show a process. But this is how it looks when we record an essay. We dissociate, goes back and forth. We laugh at our own jokes, we talk to each other. But today it was different. Because I didn't choose to be here, just like disassociation does. Not exactly in a horror way. Like I'm so scared, though I am a little scared. But I've come to know it. Because, you know, when you hit switch, you hear, you know, someone else is doing something else. Maybe you have a little bit of memory of what they were doing, maybe you don't. To tell the truth, it feels like unfiction. Because sometimes we feel just so unstable. And it's weird. Like a tape that's messed up, that's lost its tracking. It's still weird being with Glitch here. And sometimes it scares ourselves because as a creator, our whole entertainment thing is mixed up with everything we do. And we have very few friends anymore that we know outside of our content. And it's really fucking scary. And sometimes it feels like we're an entertainer first, before anything else. And I don't know how to feel about that. And then I think back to the $40 million, how to make 40K or whatever. The other thing, here it is. Earn 20K every month by being your own boss. That one I want to do a essay on as well, and it kind of reflects, I think, being a creator and feeling like working for yourself, you're not really working for yourself, you're working for an image of yourself. Kind of like its own sort of dissociation, because a lot of entertainers feel like they have an entertainment self and a real self.
And like, I can't figure out how that's adding value to anything, and yet I keep getting paid. Mr. Gilbert, we literally just spoke, and it's your money, and you put it into your... And like, that didn't make sense to me until I remembered that I'm my own boss.
Kind of like how you might hear, oh, you're an essay. Oh, that's your essayist voice. Because people who know someone in real life are like, oh yeah, they don't even talk like that really. And just like gender, everything's a performance, right? I hate the thoughts of like fake it till you make it or whatever, but I think that like human beings do that naturally. If you do something enough, even if you were doing it to pretend, it becomes something else. And because BDG used to work for Polygon, and all of his most, not notable, but most visible work, but because his most visible work is, sorry, it's taking a moment, my mind is in slow mode. Because all his most famous work is under the Unraveled name, I suspect that it was kind of like a reflection of the frustration of your mouth not being your own. I mean, we even always scope a little bit of leftism in a lot of BDG Unraveleds. There's even like a supercut on YouTube of like all the little leftist PC asides or winks at the camera that he makes. And I mean, being your own boss seems cool, and it seems like, you know, Unraveled's where what he got to do whatever he wanted. But seeing what teaching Jake the camcorder January 97, like even this little bit of fiction or unfiction or whatever that he made that's not tied to Unravel is actually really fucking good. And it's interesting when you try to take what you obsess about and try to, I guess, turn it inside out, because then when you try to create something that's inspired by the works you love instead of just analyzing the works you love, you could leave a mark on others, just like, you know, we've been left a mark on. I'm sorry for scaring anyone with this video, but I thought it would be interesting to upload, because by the time we were recording this, it wasn't me who was recording this. Only at the end did I actually fully front, because Glitch is a fusion of me, Dusk, and Punk, and we don't necessarily share memories, and we're not necessarily the same person, and we don't have enough art assets to make everyone super distinct yet. Gosh, I'm talking about so much here. This might as well be a vlog at this point. Anyway, we've been struggling. Thanks for watching. Thanks for helping anyone who's been supporting us. We're doing our best. The virus, or the fucking world, the whole state of the world has affected us really harshly, and we feel just like bundled up in a bunker waiting for things to blow over, but they never will they? And we don't want to be like Jake. We don't want to keep rewinding and looking back at the past. And that's what kind of a lot of our content is, in a way. Not necessarily rewinding, but looking back at the things that have affected us and figuring out why they have, and trying to find a through line that we think that other people can relate to, and hopefully encourage people to discover things on their own and form their own ideas, not just take everything we say for gospel.
And now you'll tell me to take care of myself?
I think. At least. That's what I would want to do. Because I didn't start this channel even. Then my headmates did that. Punk and Mocha and Whisper and Invanta, they started this channel. I just became part of it. And I wanted to show a peek behind the curtain as well, because sometimes we do feel so fake. And because we get to show ourselves more than we could ever do with our flesh mech, it feels really important to have something where we're being not more authentic, because I like to say, like in streams and stuff, we do try to be ourselves the most, but more like not trying to be a certain way, because being a content creator definitely forces you to fit a persona that you've created, even if you have created it. I don't even know how much of what the glitch did was a performance for our sake, because I know the glitch wants to help us because we've been really struggling on making content. We've been burned out, and that's probably why this exists in the first place. But we have to keep moving forward. Anyway, I'm tired. Thank you for letting me ramble at the end. And thanks for judging me. Not harshly, but like someone like you who struggles in your own ways. Because you deserve love. You deserve to be accepted. Even if you glitch out sometimes. The question is, what shall we play? So many options.